Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So we see in Proverbs 14:22 that it says, "Do not those who plot evil go astray, but those who plan what is good find love and faithfulness." You find love, right, in its various forms eventually. Say with me, almost certainly, I'll never find true romantic love here. Females haven't kind of cultivated the things they needed to achieve that. Okay, because those who plot evil go astray. Astray is a play on words for alpha stray. A equals 1. They don't know the first thing about not plotting evil, which is not cheating me out of my right to lead. And there's completely disgraced people in the churches and all this stuff that act like I'm not here. In many of these churches, I go as far as to say all the major denominations, certainly by now, their hierarchy, certainly by now is fully aware that I'm here. Okay, and that I am God's representative. So they're plotting evil. Their congregations, by refusing to see evil in the people they're following and doing their bidding and playing stupid and going to their churches, are plotting evil. And so they don't love their families, they don't love their wives, they're not going to find true love, they're not going to find true faithfulness. Just fair weather, horrible people who are willing to follow evil people and go alpha stray, refusing to admit that I'm Christ. All these scriptures are incomplete without me. Just like it says in John, I'm the one the scriptures are talking about. These are the very scriptures that testify about me. And when we see, it also says, in John that Christ says that he was speaking figuratively. He flat out says that he's speaking figuratively, which means that when we look at the timelines, we compare him, when we see what he's getting at, when he says that, as a character in the story, that I am, and you'll see me at the right hand of the mighty one coming on the clouds of heaven, that's figurative. And of course, if we go back to Proverbs 14:2, whoever fears the Lord walks uprightly, but those who despise him are devious in their way. So to cheat me out of my right to lead is to hate God. And to hate God by your actions, by the essence of your soul and spirit, okay, while pretending to serve God or praying to God, okay, is to really make God angry at you and your descendants, because you're following the same way as them. You're in the same formation as the people who are foolish enough to have you in their lives when you're not obeying God through me, and they're, especially if they're doing the same thing, and you're leading them on the wrong path, okay, and you're claiming that it's the God's path, that it's the path that God has made. That's why we see in those people who would end up mocking this, right? They're mocking instead of actually doing the right thing, right? We see in Proverbs 14:8, the mocker seeks wisdom and finds none, but knowledge comes easily to the discerning. The word used here is discerning in the New International Version, right? It might be insight in another version, it might be judgment, right? But these things are connected, right? Sense, insight, judgment, discernment. Who's more discerning than the top martial arts ever possible? And when they pretend that I'm not that, how much more does it reveal that they lack discernment? It says in the Bible, why don't you judge for yourselves what is right? Here I am, the son of 2 doctors, one a brain surgeon who came here penniless, worked his way up to being a brain surgeon. As a black man during the 60s, during the same time period where Martin Luther King was assassinated, all that white backlash that was taking place. And I have this 10-year top martial arts challenge. It'll be 11 years exactly on December 20th of this year. Okay? And I have world record speed posted. Before people were speeding up their videos, look at the date on the video. This is before everyone was speeding up their videos. Okay? I posted a video of me doing a bunch of hits in like 1.2 or 1.5 seconds. It was like 10 hits or 12 hits or 15, or it was a bunch of them. Okay? So, and I also had an existing martial art trophy that I had since 97. I made my challenge. I was already a grand champion in 1997 when I did Taekwondo, but I changed my martial arts style since then, right? And in 2013, okay, which is 16 years later, I make my top martial arts challenge. So here I am, a grand champion, the son of 2 doctors, one a brain surgeon who worked his way up. Okay, and I say that I'm being persecuted for my political views. When's the last time you've seen a martial artist make a public challenge, period, that's sparring, outdoor sparring, which is the only valid, really valid challenge to prove that you're better than everybody? Okay? And then he says that he's persecuted too. And I insisted that people admit that there's a great conspiracy, there's sex cults everywhere, and part of the reason why sex cults have been operating with impunity, and they only get caught sometimes, has to do with privilege. I'm insisting on these potent arguments that set me apart as telling the truth. When all these martial artists who are allowed to do this and that, movies and different competitions, okay, they're allowed to do that without being sabotaged because they're not telling the truth. When martial arts is about building character, martial and marital, love and character and justice. If you don't know I'm right, then you're crazy. We go down to verse 8. It says, the wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways, but the folly of fools is deception. I'm asking you all to give thought to your ways, and if you have a viable counterargument, I must have said this 1,000 times in my videos by now, so to speak. Definitely over 100 times. I've said it so many times. If you have a viable counterargument, present it. Think it through and present it. People do not have one, and I have over 10,000 videos posted on at least 3 or 4 different sites. More like 5 or 6. Okay? 10,000 in the last 15 years. Still no viable counter-argument to my core arguments. That I'm the top martial artist ever, that makes me Christ. You know how religious people are quick to disagree with you historically. I'm making this argument for a long time. They don't know what to say. They don't even know that the cloud is figurative, when in John, he says flat out that he's been speaking figuratively. And he also says why in the Bible. He said, he quotes Isaiah. And he wants you to read between the lines to see why God blinded the wicked. He said the wicked are already on the wicked path. And when there's some kind of disagreement about what it means to serve God, the wicked say, well, they just need faith, or they just follow their church, or they're led by the Spirit, instead of judging for themselves what is right. So he says to them, why don't you judge for yourselves what is right? In Luke 6:46, Jesus says to his disciples, who have been following his Spirit the whole time, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? So even though they are so-called, they have faith, right? He's still asking, why don't you do what I say? Because faith without works is dead. It's empty, like it says in James. So you have to use wisdom. Proverbs says that it's about understanding the other books in the Bible. And it says that without wisdom, people go to hell. It says that in many ways, again and again and again. The wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways, but the folly of fools is deception. And what do you think happens to them? Fools mock at making amends for sin, but goodwill is found among the upright. When we couple that with Christ saying, it's in Luke or Matthew or something, he says, if you don't repent, you too will perish. I've quoted this many times, but I've quoted so many scriptures many times, I've kind of forgot which one it is. But it says, if you don't repent, you too will perish. And it says, fools mock at making amends for sins, but goodwill is found amongst the upright. So you might be nice when you mock, but you're still mocking. For example, if some guy was like, okay, some guy said, I don't mean to offend anybody, but I just can't. And if they said that, right, their heart is still raging against the Lord, because they're on the same path and in the same spirit of rebellion as people who scream about how much they hate the Almighty. So you see what I'm saying? So they're mocking whether they're nice or whether they're blatantly mocking. They're mocking on a spectrum, if you will. The simple believe anything, but the prudent give thought to their steps. It's verse 15. The simple believe anything, right? The prudent, those who are scrambling to do what God actually wants. And again, see Proverbs 1, verse 1 through 7. It makes it clear that Proverbs is about understanding the riddles, the parables, and sayings of the wise. The parable of the sower, the parable of the wise and foolish builder, the parable of the bags of gold, the parable of the 10 minas, the parable of hidden treasure, lost treasure, parable of hidden pearl, lost pearl, the parable of the tenants, the parable of the wedding banquet, the parable of the 10 virgins. Lots of what Jesus said was in parables. And Proverbs says this is what it takes to understand those parables. And you have to think about the Proverbs. They're Proverbs, but it's pretty straightforward. When you look at this explanation, if you don't know that I'm right, you're an idiot. Why? Because when you think it through, it's obvious what it's getting at. Verse 16, the wise fear the Lord and shun evil, but the fool is hot-headed and feels secure. Whether they're raging against the Lord in an obvious manner or they're doing it subtly, they are hot-headed and feel secure. The wise fear the Lord far, far, far too much to cheat me out of my right to lead. But complete demonic trash have no problem every moment of every day cheating man of my right to lead, coming across me, Christ himself, and saying, well, you must have it wrong. No, you don't know what you're talking about. Okay, it's unbelievable.